to the slide. Let's review everything we talked about yesterday. So we said we have two lungs, right? One heart. Heart has what? 4 chambers. The two top chambers are atriums, bottom ones are ventricles. This is right atrium, left atrium, right ventricle, left ventricle. So we said we got to memorize 3 things. What was one?
Red is oxygenated.
Red means
Oxygenated.
oxygenated. If we just memorize that, we know blue is the opposite, which is deoxygenated, CO2, right? What's the second one? Artery goes away from the heart. So veins are the vessels that go toward the heart. And then we said what? Left side of the heart is oxygenated, meaning right side is going to be deoxygenated. So when you breathe in, oxygen from your lungs is going to go where? So from our lungs, blood is going to go to the left atrium. From left atrium, we said blood goes down into left ventricle. Then because it's going against the gravity, the contraction of the ventricle happens, blood goes upward into, and then goes distributes to all cells and tissues in our body, right? So far so good? We said CO2, deoxygenated blood, returns to the heart from? Huh? Right atrium. From right atrium goes to right ventricle. From right ventricle goes upward into pulmonary trunk. And then pulmonary trunk will go, turns into 2 vessels to go to right and left lung. What is this vessel called?
Pulmonary artery.
Pulmonary artery, because it's going away from the heart. What is this vessel called? Pulmonary vein. Yes, good job. Woo! So now let's take a look. So we talked about this. We said heart is at the middle of the chest. This part of the heart is called the apex. The apex is pointing to the left, right? It's behind the sternum and the mediastinum and the chest. We talked about all of that stuff. We talked about pericardium, right? We said pericardium is 2 layers of serous membrane. The outer layer is called parietal, the inner layer is called visceral. And then we said the heart has 3 layers. The visceral layer is the same thing as top layer of the heart, which is epicardium. The middle layer of the heart is the muscle, right? It's the cardiac muscle. We call it myocardium. And then the inner layer of the heart, the lining of the cavities, the linings are the endocardium. I think that's all we went over, right? Yeah, so we're going to skip this for now. We'll go back to this structure slide, but we want to go into the inside of the heart. So, this is what? Right atrium? Do you guys agree? This one is left atrium. I'm going to change the ink. So look, this is right atrium, correct? Oh, I can't write. This is difficult to write on. Never mind. That's right atrium, this one is left atrium, this is right ventricle, this is left ventricle. There are structure inside these cavities, inside these chambers that are only found in those chambers. Do you guys see this here? What is that called? Fossa ovalis. Let me write all this. That's fossa ovalis right here. So guys, this fossa ovalis before birth right atrium and left atrium, there's a hole there. That's the hole. That's a foramen. We call it foramen ovale. Remember you had a foramen ovale in the skull? This is not the same one. After birth, right after birth, the first breath the baby takes, the infant takes, this fossa ovalis needs to be formed. That hole, that foramen has to shut down. Why was there a foramen before? Because the fetus, does it breathe? Does it breathe with the outside world? No. It's getting its oxygen CO2 from the mom. Does that make sense? So the way the oxygen and deoxygenated blood circulates is different. The minute the baby's born and takes the first breath, the pressure in these chambers changes. Does that make sense? You don't need to know this for your exam. I just want you to understand what is that hole. So the difference between these two pressure in the chambers changes, it shuts down that foramen. Does that make sense? It's a valve that's open, pretty much. That foramen ovale, it's like a valve, but it's open all the time. Does that make sense? Once the breathing with the environment comes, the pressure goes so high that that foramen ovale gets shut down and becomes fossa ovalis. If it doesn't shut down, that is the condition when they say the baby's born with hole in the heart. Have you heard that? Sometimes they have to wait and monitor. Sometimes they give them medication. Sometimes they have to go and surgically fix it. But that's fossa ovalis. We only find fossa ovalis in the right atrium. Was the red one or the yellow? I want. Because it's red on red. I don't know if you see it well. Do you guys see it? Okay. Now look at this. Do you see this on the side? That's a muscle. It's called pectinate muscle. Do you guys see the pectinate muscle? So look. Do you see pectinate muscle in the right atrium, left atrium? Okay, pectinate muscle are in both atriums, right and left. I remember I missed this on my lecture exam. Why did I miss it? Because in the picture you don't see any. Does that make sense? Well, look. Which wall of the heart they've taken off for you to see inside? The front, the anterior wall. Behind the anterior wall of the right atrium, that's where you find all that pectinate muscle. Same thing with left atrium. Does that make sense? It's not even really on the sides. They draw it here on the side so you can see it. Does that make sense? When you look in lab in the models, so these chambers, they have doors, you open them. When you open the right and left atrium, you're going to find this pectinate muscle behind it. Does that make sense? Pectinate muscle is found there. Now look, this is right ventricle, this is left ventricle. Between the two ventricles, we have a wall, a septum. We call it interventricular septum. We call it interventricular septum. Now let's go back to this movement we talked about. So let me ask you something. We said oxygenated blood enters where? The heart from? From where? Be more specific than left side. The left atrium. It enters the heart in the left atrium, correct? At the same time, what's happening? Deoxygenated blood coming into Right atrium, look. Every structure above the heart, the blood is returned, the oxygenated blood is returned through this vessel, which is called superior vena cava. Everything below the heart is turned to the heart by what? Inferior vena cava. So at the same time that left atrium is getting filled up with oxygenated blood, right atrium is getting filled up by deoxygenated blood. At the same time, oxygenated blood and deoxygenated blood from right and left atrium will drain into right and left ventricles. After that, we said from left ventricle blood has to go where? Into aorta. Do you guys see that? It goes here into that. So they cross each other. Do you see how this one goes this way, this one goes this way? They cross each other. What they also have to go against that? Gravity, right? How does it go up there? Is these two ventricles, they contract. I call it like a squeezing. Well, now let me ask you something. If you squeeze, let's say blood is filled up to here, right? Now we want the blood to go upward. If you squeeze this, would blood not go back into the right and left atrium? Huh? If you have a balloon, right, that has two ends to it, filled up with water, if you squeeze at the middle, which way is the water going to go? Well, why do you think if you squeeze this, blood won't go back that way? Blood should go back into the atriums and into the aorta, right? Same thing on this side. But blood is supposed to only move unidirectional, meaning in one way. If it goes back way, that's a pathology, that's illness. Does that make sense? So how do we prevent, when they contract the ventricles, how do we prevent blood going back into the atrium? Is by these two white structures that you see there, which are valves. Those valves shut down when the ventricles contract, preventing the blood go backward into the atrium. Did that make sense or no? Yes. Okay, what do we call those two valves? It's called AV valve or atrioventricular valve because it's between the atriums and ventricles, right? You need to know this one is right atrioventricular valve. You need to know this one is left atrioventricular valve. But you also need to know their specific names. For lecture, you need to know atrioventricular valve right and left, but you also need to know the right atrioventricular valve is called tricuspid. Tricuspid. The left one is called bicuspid. Let me write it on the board. Right atrioventricular valve, AV valve. He said it's what? Tricuspid. The left AV valve is bicuspid. You're not going to call it tricuspid bicuspid. You have to call it tricuspid bicuspid valve. And then bicuspid valve, the other name for it is mitral valve. You ever heard of the mitral valve? Yes or no? Okay. Yes or no? No? Okay, so this is tricuspid valve. This one is bicuspid valve. Now blood enters, so these AV valves show blood from right ventricle goes where? Into pulmonary trunk. Blood from left ventricle goes into aorta. Now, once the contraction stops, where does the blood drain back again? Common sense. When contraction stops, where is the gravity supposed to bring the blood back into the ventricles? Well, we said that's going to be pathology if blood goes backward. It's supposed to only move forward, right? That's why right here at the front, at the entrance of pulmonary trunk And at the entrance of aorta, we have pulmonary semilunar valve and aortic semilunar valve. Do you guys see that? The minute the contractions stop, they shut down so the blood doesn't go back. If the blood goes back in, pathology, that's illness. We do, bless you, we do have conditions where blood does go backward. So this here is pulmonary semilunar valve. This one is aortic semilunar valve. Now, let me tell you something. When these two muscle contraction happens, when the ventricles contract, the pressure is so high that if these two valves are like this too, without these anchoring down, you guys see how it almost looks like a tent that you anchor down on the ground, right? What happens if you just put a tent in a windy room, windy place? It's just gonna collapse, right? It's just gonna go backward, right? It's the same thing here. So the AV valves, they connect to these bumpy muscles. Do you guys see that? Which we call them papillary muscles. Where do you find papillary muscles? Ventricles. AV valve connects to the papillary muscles by these string-like structures called chordae tendineae. Chordae tendineae. Questions? Question? Now, in the ventricles, in the back wall, do you guys see we have a muscle there? We call that tubercular carne, like carne asada. Tubercular carne. The left ventricle, do you guys see how the wall of left ventricle is 3 times or more thicker than right ventricle? That's because the right ventricle, when it contracts, it sends the blood into pulmonary trunk. Look, this is where my heart is, right? This is where my heart is. Am I kind of correct? Right? Or no? This is almost where my heart is. Yes? So from right ventricle, blood has to go up and go here to my right and left lungs. Does it need a big contraction? No. It's just going a little distance. But from the left ventricle, when it comes to aorta, now the blood has to go to all of my body. Does that make sense? That's why this contraction is stronger, and that's why it has a stronger muscle, thicker muscle. Does that make sense? Between right and left atrium, we have intra-atrial septum. What else did I miss here to show you? I like to think I showed you here. Look, the pulmonary trunk becomes right and left pulmonary artery. Well, let me talk about aorta. When aorta is going up, that first part of the aorta, when it's going up, we call it ascending aorta. From here to here, where it's arching, we call it arch of aorta or aortic arch. We call it descending aorta. Now I'm going back to this slide. Right and left atrium, they're covered by this ear flap-like structure. Do you guys see that? We call it auricle. This is right auricle. This is left auricle. So what did we have here when it was open? There was a septum there. What was that septum called? Interventricular septum, correct? That's where the right and left ventricle wall was. Where we have on top, where the interventricular septum is, we have it grooved there. We have it grooved. Remember the other name for groove is sulcus? We call that anterior interventricular sulcus. Does that make sense? That's where anterior interventricular sulcus is. When you look from the back, you have posterior interventricular sulcus. That's where what's going to be? Interventricular wall. Does that make sense? So on top, when you cover this, we have anterior interventricular sulcus, and on the back of it, we have posterior interventricular sulcus. Now, what happens in the blood? Not blood. What happens? We talked about what the function of cardiovascular system is, correct? It sends the blood to every cell and tissue. Did we say that or not? Okay, so it sends the blood to every cell and tissue in the body. So, now, excuse me, I'm going to blame it on you guys, on your classmates. People are constantly yawning. I'm trying to avoid you. It's just hard. And then I keep yawning and more students see it and then you yawn more. Stop it, Jake. It's all Jake's fault. But I'm yawning and then more people yawn and then I yawn more and then more students yawn and then somebody falls asleep. So look, the purpose of blood vessels, we said the arteries from the heart, when it goes to the cells and tissue, they take the oxygen and nutrients to the cells and tissues. And then CO2 in the waste is returned, picked up on the way back from cells and tissues returned, correct? Arteries and veins. Arteries and veins, oxygen and deoxygenated blood, they usually run together. Now, they're not going to be running in the same direction, right? Arteries are going toward the cells and tissues, veins are going back, but they're always, just like you see here, in 95% of the places, we have artery, vein, we have artery, vein, and a nerve. Does that make sense? Now, nerve, you don't have to worry about that. It's not part of this class. So look, in the anterior interventricular sulcus, there is this artery you need to know. This artery is called anterior interventricular artery. And there's a vein, we call it great cardiac vein. Did you see that? You need to know those. Between atriums and ventricles, we have coronary sulcus. So there's another groove between the atrium and ventricle. We call it coronary sulcus, right? Between atriums and ventricle, all around, we have coronary sulcus. We have coronary artery and coronary vein. There. Do you guys see that? That's coronary artery. Do you guys see it or not? Coronary artery and coronary vein. Now look in the back. When you look in the back, that coronary sulcus, in the back here, there's a widening of it. We call it coronary sinus. Do you see that? This is coronary vein, but here in this part, we call it coronary sinus. In the posterior interventricular sulcus, we're going to have posterior interventricular artery, and middle cardiac vein. Middle cardiac vein. This is where left atrium is. And this is where the base of the heart is. This is superior vena cava, inferior vena cava. These are left, right pulmonary veins. This is right pulmonary artery, left pulmonary artery, ascending aorta, arch of aorta. You don't really see ascending aorta here. Questions? Questions? regular connective tissue. That's this structure here you see. Guys, this is your bicuspid. You see how it's like two cusps? Here we have 1, 2, 3. This is tricuspid valve. This is the auricum-pulmonary valve. You see how the right ventricle wall is like so much thicker than the left one? Sorry, the left one is so much thicker than the right one. This is 3 times thicker. So look, this is coronary artery, right? Look, on the left coronary artery gives you this branch, anterior interventricular artery. That's your posterior interventricular artery. It's in the back. That's why you see it lighter color. Have you heard about coronary heart disease? It's like one of the most common cause of death in America. Did you know that? About 30% of Americans at some time in their life they're gonna have coronary heart disease. What's coronary heart disease? Do you see how thin that artery is? Do you see how thin these arteries are? This is right coronary, this is left coronary. So, aorta is the main vessel that pumps the blood to the cells and tissues, correct? The first branch, what was the first part of aorta? Ascending aorta, then it was arch of aorta, then it's descending aorta. So next week, we're going to learn all the name of these vessels. Well, not every single one of them, as much as we learned for this class. Does that make sense? So ascending aorta, this is ascending aorta, correct? Ascending aorta gives off 2 branches. Right coronary artery, left coronary artery. What structure are coronary arteries supplying blood to? What organ? I can't hear you. What organ are they supplying blood to? The heart. Yes. Thank you. They're supplying the heart itself. What are they supplying basically? Oxygen and CO2 to cells and tissues to produce ATP so they can live and contract. They're part of contraction, they have to be alive to contract, correct? What happens if there's a blockage in those arteries? You're not going to get oxygen to parts of the heart, depends on where the blockage is, correct? And those cells are going to die. It's literally going to stop the heart from contracting and stuff. And that's what a heart attack is. You guys see where we're going? That's why MI, myocardial infarction, heart attack is so dangerous. And this is why coronary heart disease is so common. Look how thin that is. It's so easy to get filled up with McDonald's and Burger King and sodas and French fries and mac and cheese. I had both of them today. If I have a heart attack this weekend, you know why. So they get plugged up. They can get plugged up. I don't remember who it was today. It was someone in your class told me I'm a boomer generation. I don't know who it was. I don't remember. And then I asked, what age is boomer generation? They told me 54 or up. Yes, someone said that to me in this class. So look here guys, we're looking at coronary vein, right? What is this? That's the coronary sinus. Greater cardiac vein. In the back we said we have middle cardiac vein. These are the intercalated discs. central nerve, pacemaker. That is where action potential impulse starts in the heart. So everywhere in our body we have chemical impulse. Let's see. Everywhere in our body we have chemical impulse. In the heart we have electrical impulse. Does that make sense? We also have chemical impulse. It's a calcium, sodium, potassium, all of these causing action potential. But look here. Remember that fibrous connective tissue I showed you between atrium and ventricles? Let me go back to the slide. I want to show you. Remember this? Remember that? That fibrous connective tissue between atrium and ventricles prevent the action potential to just flow down from atrium to ventricle. Does that make sense? That fibrous connective tissue prevents that flow. So the first electrical impulse starts here at SA node. Action potential goes all over, right? Well, then it has to go to AV node. You guys see that? From AV node, it goes into the interventricular septum, which we call it AV bundle or bundle of His. From there, it goes to the wall of the ventricles, which we call it what? Purkinje fibers. Once the action potential reaches the Purkinje fibers, that's when the contraction happens. Does that make sense? But this is why the atriums and ventricles, they contract at a different pace, not connected to each other. Does that make sense? When they say, somebody says, oh, they put like an internal pacemaker for someone. Have you ever heard of that? Internal pacemaker? So they have to put something here that if their heart stops beating, what does the internal pacemaker do? It actually acts as a pacemaker here. Does that make sense? What is sudden death? When it completely stops. Did I say starts? When the heart completely stops. It's just electrical impulse. They just go off. How do they bring it back? How do they restore it? What is that shock called? Well, what do they do there? Huh? What's the other name for it? Defibrillator, right? So, this, and now, a lot of times sometimes with those people, they have to put internal defibrillator in there, inside. But yeah, this is, here. Did you know if you take someone's heart out of their body, it can beat on its own? Did you know that? Yes or no? For hours. Well, because it's like electrical impulse. It's working on its own. Does that make sense? This is the only one in the body where we have electrical impulses. And that's why when someone has a sudden death, cardiac arrest, that's a medical terminology for it, they have to give them a shock. So look, action potential goes to the AV, down into the bundle of His. From there to Purkinje fibers, and then contraction happens. Questions? Ventricular systole and ventricular diastole. Ventricular systole is when the ventricles are contracting. That's ventricular systole. So let me ask you something. If ventricular systole, if the right and left are about to contract, are the AV valves closed or open? Closed. Remember we said AV valves are closed. Yes? And when the ventricles are relaxed, we call that ventricular diastole. That's when the AV valves are open, but then the pulmonary consemiluminal valves are closed. What is the heart sound? What does it sound? sounds like what? It's a heart, huh? It sounds like elephant heart. So loud. What is this? What medical condition was this last one? Huh? Guys, remember, I don't have a good hearing. Irregular means what? Arrhythmia. Tachycardia means beating fast. Tachy means fast. Brady means slow. Tachycardia is when the heart goes faster than normal. But when it goes all over the place, that's arrhythmia. So, Dublup, D-U-B-L-U-B. That's the sound of the heart. I never heard Dublup. I don't know what the hell they're talking about. There are sounds in the heart that they try to teach me in class, including Dublup. I'm like, what are you saying? Okay, I'll just memorize Dublup because it's literally on standard. It's on a medical board exam. Dublup. It doesn't even sound like a Dublup. Okay, dub is the first sound, lup is the second sound. First sound is dub, that's where AV valve close. Second sound is lup, that's where semilunar valves close. So once their valves close, they make, that's the sound. But you see how fast that whole thing happens? Just think about it. All of this we explained, it sounds like it's going to take like 5 minutes. It's like a millisecond. Here, this is a chart. If you're good at charts, this tells you like how the blood flow happens throughout the heart. Ah, this is at 21 days. 21 days of what? We're looking at embryology. What is this? 21 days? Huh? Yes. This one is at day 22. Does it look like a heart? This is at 7 weeks. Wait, didn't they say you can hear a heart sound at 7 weeks? Is that a heart? Huh? Looks like what? It looks like a what? We're gonna have a debate now. These debates I have, they are related to the class. Now, sometimes students think I'm going off topic. I'm not. You can think it's off topic. Huh? We're gonna have a debate now. Is that a heart?
No.
What's the definition of a living thing in biology in general? Are viruses living things? Can you guys put your computers away? I want everybody participating in this debate. What's the definition of a living thing? Living on their own. They should be able to live on their own, right? Are viruses living things? No. Why? Because they need a host to live on, right? So, because they can't live on their own. That's pretty much why a virus is not considered a living thing. We're talking only, she's shaking her head. She knows where I'm going with this. Do you know where I'm going or no? No? So let me ask you something. What is that heart sound you hear they play for you? Huh? No, it's not your own. It is a fetus. But it's not a heart. It's just a little contraction there making noise. You know what I mean? But that's not a heart. When does the heart fully develop? 5 to 6 months. At what age you can take a fetus out and it can live on its own? Or with a machine? No, at 5, 6 months. They can be born at 5, 6 months. They don't even have to be in a machine. But the heart has to be developed. When there's no developed heart, there's no life. Biology definition. Huh? Sometimes, yeah. It depends on the timing. Like 8 months, 8. So a lot of babies are born in 7 months, right? Natural pregnancy is how many months? 9. If it's born at 7, You would think if born at 7, it's worse than born at 8, right? That's not true. If born at 7, they're better than born at 8 because between 7 and 8, some developments happen again. Does that make sense? Some grow. If half of it started in the mom's womb and now the baby's born, they need to be hooked to machines. Does that make sense? That's why like born in 7 months is better than month 8. Does that make sense? So it is premature, yes, but depends on like a lot of it. I think my older sister was born at 6 months. Yeah, it's something that happens, especially with twins. A lot of twins are born at 6, 7 months. But let me ask you something. Why do we have all this abortion fight in America? Huh?
Just like telling what is like.
Some people are calling some people murderers for wanting to have an abortion. Some people are telling people, my body, my choice. And some people, it's just a disaster. It's like a political disaster, right? Forget about the politics. Politics, we know it's dirty, right? It's a distraction, whatever it is. Does anybody believe politicians are honest people?
No.
They can be. It's part of their job. You can't be honest and be a politician. Talk to a political person, politician, they'll tell you that. Okay? What is this between people? How is this? Where is this coming from? Religious views. Does anybody disagree with that? What else can it be? Huh? Depends on how you're raised, I think. Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. What's the purpose of intercourse or sex? What does it say louder? I swear I'm really deaf today. Reproduction? To reproduce?
To have fun.
Oh yeah, who was that? That was Valerie. Valerie says just to have fun. Does it say in Bible have sex to have fun? Does it say in Quran? Does it say in any religious books? In religion, what's the purpose of having sex? Reproduction. Pretty much, if you want to be super religious, that's my view. But let me ask you something else. If abortion is killing or murder, right? Can you put your phone away, please? If abortion is murder, when there is no real life, right? There's no life. Huh?
There's no life, like it hasn't developed, then it's not.
There's no life. That's what I'm saying. There's no life. Biology, no life. Because in biology, we can't explain a soul. Soul is something that comes from religion. Now, I'm not saying what's right, what's wrong, but I got a point here. So, if abortion is murder because you're stopping reproduction, how does using condom is not a murder?
I'm sorry.
How is birth control not a murder?
It's made
You're
it
having
sound
sex for pleasure? Where in Bible or Quran or help me here? What are some other religion books? Tarot? Where in any of these books does it say have sex for pleasure and use condom if you don't want babies? Or pull it out, huh? Birth control, pulling out. When you're pulling out, you're committing murder. With that view, guys, with that view, anybody, huh?
So you're jerking on the committee room. All those kids.
It is a sin. How come masturbation is considered a sin? And then having pleasure and pulling it out is not a sin. I'm pretty sure it is.
I mean, you were in there at least.
Where do you draw the line? That's what I want to say. Where do you draw that religious belief line? Well, let me tell you something. You know we have religion groups that they don't use birth control. They don't pull it out. They don't, you know that, right? Because they do consider it murder.
So you have kids every other day.
You know there are religion groups, they only have sex. Husband and wife are only allowed to have sex at the time of ovulation. You know that, right? Because the real definition of sex is for reproduction. They are practicing it. So the rest of you, per religion, we kind of are. What? We're all murderers, right?
I mean, they're just trying to get those tax deductions.
If masturbation is considered murder, wouldn't the menstrual cycle be considered murder too?
What?
Because you have like a set amount of eggs and then an egg's going through without being without being fertilized, so wouldn't that be considered murder too?
If what?
And the menstruation cycle.
Reproductive.
Periods.
Periods, the menstruation cycle. Wouldn't that also be considered murder? Because you're losing an egg, it's not getting fertilized.
I feel like the murder would be like
You're
an
just being-
intentional act of killing someone.
Huh?
I get what you're saying.
Because some people consider.
Let me ask you a question. Be comfortable to raise your hand. I'll raise my hand with you. Who feels weird about abortion? I do. Nobody? We don't got any religion people here? Nobody think it's bad? It's wrong?
I would say it gets worse when it's more developed and they're literally having.
What is more developed? 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks? We just said 6 months. I feel very weird someone get abortion at 4.5 months. Biology tells me 5, 6 months. I'm okay with it at 2 months.
Yeah.
I feel weird about 4 months. I really do. But biology tells me 4 months is 4 months. I feel weird about it. And I'm not a religious person, but ding, 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 I was born and raised in a religious family. So even though I'm a scientist and I'm a biologist and I teach this stuff, there's still a part of me makes me feel weird. Does that make sense? Now, raise your hand if you're completely okay with abortion. Oh wow, we got a very one-sided students in this class.
Well, I mean, I'm good until obviously like you said, 4 or 5 months.
Right
then
now,
it's too
right now, I have problems with the Superior Court. Who are a bunch of old men to decide what a woman can do with the body or not? You know? But at the end of the day, America is a very religious country. Our roots are based on religions.
You said if you used to say man, what right does he have to say what you do with your body? But it's also the same thing as allowing transgenderism and women's sports. It's a lot. It doesn't make
That's
sense.
a different thing. I agree with you on that too. Again, because we talk biology. You know, when you talk biology, we're gonna have a debate on that too. That's gonna be our last class. No, we are gonna have a debate on that. That's the last class when we learn reproductive system. This is the space for us to say how we feel. I've had students in the class, this same room, saying, I think it's murder. No, I don't accept that. It's wrong. You know, and I said, well, you're murdering when you pull it out. They laugh. They're like, no, it's not. I'm like, oh, yes, it is. Where do you draw the line? You know, because there are religious that says that too. Now, there's no right or wrong answer about this. Does that make sense? There's no right or wrong. But I want us to think about it. This is something that comes from religion. Because based on science, we don't have a definition for soul. Do we? There is no definition about it. Why is this, then why are viruses not a living thing? I still call babies what? What do I call them? No. I call them parasites. I call them pregnancy. The fetus is a parasite. Do you guys know what's the difference between a human fetus and parasite definition?
What?
Parasites live inside your body and live off your body, right? But for it to be parasite, they have to be a different species. That's it. That's it. Because it's the same species, they don't call it a parasite. But it's a parasite. Now, why would we have these conversations? why do we have a debate like this? Why do I like, well, it wasn't really a debate, because you all are like, oh, I'm pro-abortion, we got no problem. I'm like, does that make sense? Like, almost everyone in this class was on one side. You guys are like, nah, I don't care. It wasn't even I don't care, because everybody raised their hand when they are pro-abortion, right? But it's fine. If you're not, I don't want you to fake it. Making a debate as people from both sides talking about something. Does that make sense? Well, what's the purpose of a debate like this, or talking about something like this in a classroom? What are you guys going to become?
We just get us more involved in material and we're all.
More
training to
involved
be
with the
better.
material and then understanding something like this, right? If you're an atheist, you're probably going to be like, oh, that's so stupid, right? And if you're a super religion person, let's say you're not, can you see their point of view? That's their belief system. How are you going to change it? You know, there are people who won't get abortion knowing it can kill them. You know, there are people who won't get abortion knowing the baby is completely, dead, or like it's gonna have like severe Down syndrome and stuff like that. Like, get the damn abortion. Do you guys see where I'm going with that? Like, that's why this is a space for us to talk about this. This is where we have this complete freedom of talking about this. And the reason for it is to understand the opposite side of us. The politicians have made this become something like, everybody wants to fight it, my way or highway, right? But it's not. This has nothing to do with politics. Those dirty politicians are using people's religion, beliefs. Do you guys see where I'm going with this? To like cause this hate and division because my belief is different than yours. Does that make sense? But in reality, if someone strongly believes that, because that's their belief and their religion, even if I think it's dumb, I have to respect that. I use the word dumb, but I hope you guys know what I mean, right? I'm not saying it in a disrespectful way. I have to understand that. And that's what I'm hoping these debates give us. Something like this we talk about, it's like, you have to understand, you are going to run into someone. Friends, family, patients. You are going to run into someone one day in your career as a healthcare professional, and you're going to have somebody who doesn't want to understand they need that abortion. And not only you have to respect that, you have to treat them with integrity and dignity. Does that make sense? And that's something that's probably the hardest part of healthcare professional, is to be like, because it's so easy for human point at each other, right? Oh, it's their own fault. Does that make sense? Yeah, that's something to talk about. What else? Any questions? Huh?
That's the religion though.
That's religion as well, right? Celibacy, absence, what is it called? Abstaining. She tried to twist the whole thing. She went into the freak route. She's like, well, then if you don't have sex, you're committing murder. Did you guys see that? You are supposed to try it. That would be isn't that the movie? What is it called, that show, that creepy show? Handmaid's Tale. That's what that show's doing, pretty much. I mean, it's not a real thing, right? But that's what it is. They have forced entry, but yeah, forced sex during their ovulation. Crazy. Okay. Did you say science? No. Handmaid's Tale is not science. That's just some weird stuff.
Oh, I think it's messed up, yeah.
I stopped watching it. How many seasons is it out now? Does anybody watch it? I stopped watching it, huh? What? Handmaid's Tale? What is it called? Did I say it correctly? Have you watched it? It's on Hulu. What else? I think only Hulu. It's a really weird thing. Have you seen all of it? How many seasons is it now? I think, yeah, I don't think I've seen the last 1 or 2 seasons. I couldn't. Discuss. It's so difficult to watch. And I let my head go to weird places. And then I see like Supreme Court like say, oh, abortion's banned now. I'm like, oh, are they gonna do that to us? Why are they making those moves? Because I think like that sometimes. So it's not good for me. Huh? I'm like, wait, do they make these movies to put in our head? Are we going that way? Like,
Nah, foreshadowing the future, that's the Simpsons.
huh?
The Simpsons is foreshadowing the future, like.
Well, I do believe they want to make you like accept slowly. I believe they do it from the shows and TV stuff that they post.
Like, you see in The Simpsons where Trump won, but it was years and years and years ago.
I never watched it. I don't know what it is like. Simpsons? Simpsons?
Simpsons?
Is it like the Family Guy, the Yelp thing?
Yeah. Yellow. Yeah, Yellow.
I don't know. Where are they? Where am I? Maybe I can binge watch that. Disney Plus?
Is it?
Maybe I should binge watch that. Huh? What?
Oh, the Boondocks? Oh yeah, that's a great.
Boondock? Let me have you guys give me a couple shows. I was binge watching NCIS last weekend, and I started having bad nightmares.
Do you want like a good anime? Do you like anime or some of that science based? I mean, I like it.
Science based, like what?
So basically, the whole world turns to stone, and then one guy comes back and makes like a brainiac, basically like trying to rebuild society slowly. And he comes up with his ways and make electricity.
What was that name he said?
Boondocks.
Boon?
B-O-O-N. D-O-C-K.
D?
O-C-K. Yes.
Boondock. What is it about? Give me a couple shows before you leave. Come on, man.
Avatar: The Last Airbender.
What was it called? What is it?
Oh, Polar on Netflix.
Polar, what's that?
It's basically, I like to say it's like a hit.
I watched Animal Kingdom and what's it called, huh?
Snowfall.
I watched Snowfall. I watched that kind of show. This guy thinks I'm a nerd or something. Huh?
Breaking Bad.
Breaking Bad and stuff like that.
Yeah, there you go.
Ozark. Well, I've seen them all.
You seen Ozark?
Yes.
I love that show.